It is that time of month again. We are the Pride and Puck podcast. I am your host, Andrew McDougall. We are back once again for another episode of season 2. This is episode number 18. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter /X. We're also on YouTube as well. We've kickstarted a YouTube channel with all of the interviews from season 1 and season 2. A lot of them are on there. So check out our YouTube and do all the good stuff. As we always say, subscribe, like, follow, share, rate and review. Do all of that stuff for us as well, just to help us grow. But we are back. It's coming to a close, season 2. It's really exciting to get through another season. And I always say this every single month that I've got an awesome guest to bring onto the show. But I think this one's going to be a good one. I think someone who everyone's been looking to see to get onto the podcast and been crying out for this person. So Stuart Ridley, welcome to the podcast.
What an intro, man. Thank you. G'day. I'm Stuart, he, him. Harbour Lights Hockey, Sydney.
We are. This is a global podcast. But the essence of it started here in Australia, obviously. So we are coming back home with Stuart and the connection with Harbour Lights. You're synonymous with the Lights, mate. And every time I talk to someone they about Harbour Lights, they mention you. What does it mean to you to have that strong connection?
Far out. It's about bringing community together. So, we've all played lots of sports separately to having queer sport, but there is something magical about being with your queer friends and all the masks come off and you can be as you want to be. But and it's really encouraging to see queer friends of mine get back into sport too after a long while. That's one of my favorite things about this.
And it's taken me a while to get you on too. When I remember reaching out, and you were helping me get guests on in season 1, and you were like, you don't really want to talk to me. Here's someone here, and no, you don't want to talk to me. Here's someone here. So we finally got you on for season 2.
Look, yeah, normally I interview people. It's not me being on the other side is just ridiculous. Frankly, we could be here for hours. Anyway.
I think you might be too, mate. I think you might be the first DJ that I probably had on the show.
Possibly, yeah. So actually quite a few Harbour Lights members are, so we've got members in Central Coast and Newcastle, and I know for sure they're playing all kinds of clubs, but queer clubs in particular, and I think it's 5 or 6 of us in Sydney at least, which is pretty cool. And that's kind of how the whole club kicked off. We had a disco on ice, played some hockey. It was Mardi Gras. You couldn't go anywhere else to dance. Let's just launch a queer hockey club on Mardi Gras night. 2021.
We will get into that. But tell me about sports for you growing up.
Oh man. I did so many sports. Like I'm one of those kids who's hyper, so I always wanted to have stuff and I got into everything. Originally I was going to be the next Rudolph Nureyev. I was going to be a ballet dancer. I'm trying to say this with a straight face. I can't just do straight, but anyway, I had my heart set on doing ballet, but then when I was about 17, I was playing rugby and I was playing field hockey and I'd played baby ice hockey and I was doing athletics and horse riding and snowboarding and skiing and a whole bunch of stuff. And it was quite clear that I was not going to make it as a ballet dancer. In fact, I was never going to make it as a sports person either. I got to uni, having played fairly high grades at high school, and uni, obviously, there's adults, grown-ass men are playing against you in rugby. I'm like, I'll just be playing social sport the rest of my life. But it was something like my parents were super encouraging. If we showed interest in something and they could afford it or make it happen for us, they did. Like my dad his whole philosophy was don't hold yourself back, so if you don't hold yourself back, then that encourages other people not to hold back, they'll get in. And Mum's whole thing was about, it's cool just being out there. Like, how lucky are we that we get to do this, whatever it is, whatever activity you're into, and go out there and have fun. And when it stops being fun, then maybe seriously think whether you want to continue doing it. Obviously, there's a learning curve, but so I guess all of it's connected to that joy, like mental joy, physical joy, social joys of sport. I'm possibly one of the worst players on the team I'm currently playing. I'm certainly the oldest. And I've got other stuff going on in my life. I basically train once a week and play once a week, and that's it, man. Like, other people in Harbour Lights are playing 5 times a week. They're superstars like Brigitte and people like that. Not so much me. I'm a rank amateur.
How seriously did you take ice hockey when you were younger, and did you think that it would be something you'd play sort of well into your age now?
I fell in love with it when I was about 6. So Dad had some mates who Department of Foreign Affairs, and so they'd taken him to some hockey games, in the States, and he loved it. So this guy who loved rugby and all this kind of stuff saw hockey and went, "Oh my God, this is brilliant." And he took me to, I can't remember what it's called, basically baby hockey, like you played sideways across the rink, and it was at Phillip in Canberra. I don't know if you've been. Anyway, back then,
not yet.
Had like chicken wire for this instead of glass and stuff. And I started doing it at 6, and then one of his mates sent over these tapes of this team that Dad and his circle of friends had started following, the New York Islanders. I think they were maybe a few years old at that point, and they were on a tear. Like, they were on their way to winning 4 Stanley Cups, but it was the first year. I think, like, when I got the tapes, 80 or something like that, and I just became obsessed with this team. I had no business, from Long Island in New York, and hearing about it via C-mail mostly. So you kind of watch the Islanders. I played, and then I went to boarding school, so I couldn't play hockey on ice anymore, and I took up field hockey and played rugby. And then years later, I was blessed to have kids, and my youngest Dash got me into archery, and then into kung fu, and then with my daughter and Dash, we were doing kung fu together. And then one day Dash is like, "I don't want to play soccer anymore, I want to play ice hockey, Dad." I think they were like 8 or 9 or something. I'm like, far out, that'd be pretty cool. So obviously, we'd been watching games together and things. I was all in. I'm like, yeah, you got to finish that soccer season though, because that would not go down. But how about you train for the rest of winter, and then let's see what happens next year. So they trained hard, and then they were part of the ISU Wolves Club when it first started in Alexandria, and they were like in the eldest team, which back then, God, I can't remember, maybe Pee-wees or something by the time they got that sorted. So that was super cool. So I was a hockey parent, and great community. And Remy Harvey, who's played for Australia, gave Dash their first set of hockey everything except for skates, practically. Like, that's pretty cool, passing the baton to a kid who probably won't represent Australia. They've got other stuff going on. But that was amazing start. And I'd be on the sidelines, and after 6 months I'm like, I really want to do this. And there was no social league yet at ISU, and as soon as they started one, I was there. I learned how to stop. I'd been training for a couple of months or something, but I was in. And so then it's both of us playing hockey, and obviously me being a parent, explaining to my kid everything that I've learned about hockey, and clearly being clueless. Dash is such a good player, and I am so not.
And it sounds like you've touched on every single Olympic sport there is as well.
I did breaking in like 82. It's part of hip hop, man. Like, so it's, MCs DJing, It's what got me into DJing, breaking, and graph. It was, yeah, anyway, we're not going to talk about the Olympics.
We mentioned it before about Harbour Lights, and it's obviously why you're on. You're a big part of Harbour Lights. Before we came on, you mentioned that Pride Tape was the catalyst for Harbour Lights. Can you just talk us through that?
Yeah, so I think it was Dash was still playing mixed hockey, so like mixed gender, non-contact, maybe 2019, so whatever that is, 5 years ago. And they'd seen Pride Tape online, so we ordered like 5 rolls or something. And a friend of ours, Alice, who's one of the founders of Harbour Lights, also got some at the same time, and she'd had some before. So we all started wrapping our sticks, and that's basically how Dash and a couple of their friends came out in junior hockey. Now, these trailblazers, oh my God, they're like 14 years old, and they're like, we're here, we're queer, and we're going to play hockey. That was pretty cool. So because of Pride Tape, Pride Tape, champions all these queer hockey clubs around the world. So we're then introduced to, clubs in New York and Chicago and all over Canada, and seeing what they've been doing over the years, even before Pride Tape existed. And that really encouraged us. And that was like a conversation with Alice, God, maybe 2020. Hey, maybe we could start a queer hockey club in Sydney. What do you reckon? And then Alice sorted a bunch of Pride Tape, and we were both playing on two social leagues together. And we asked our friends to put the Pride Tape on. It was during Pride Month, I think, in June. And everyone bar 2 people did it. Now, one of them was Merity, who had the best excuse ever. Merity had this new tape. I can't remember whether it was Hello Kitty or something cute like that. And she's like, "Oh, I'd love to, Stu. I'm like, I'm a proud member of the community." But I think it was her friend, not a girlfriend or anything. But she taped my stick up for me tonight, and I went, "You're totally off the hook. It's fine." So we all went out, this whole team, and that was for Dash and their friends to see a whole team do it. That's solidarity, and so it kind of then connected us with other people at other rinks. The more they said Pride Tape, and people would ask for it, and then people would come out to you. And all along, apart from a handful of friends, I was not out in hockey. I was like hockey dad who's helping with the scoring and carrying the water bottles and stuff. And it was not about me. It was about supporting my kid. I didn't want to throw that into the mix. Anyway, so we then ordered a bunch of Pride Tape, started planning how we're going to launch a club. It's in the middle of COVID. And there's the guy who was managing the rink at the time, and he's like a figure skater, and he goes, "Oh, we're going to launch it in Mardi Gras. You've got 2.5 months." We're like, "What?" Mardi Gras, man. All right. And he organized these drag queens from the Pollies, like a legendary drag community in Sydney. And we had a bunch of DJs, and we put a big disco, and this flag behind me, Alice and Emma made together, and we put that up on the rink, and I had this big queer dance party for Mardi Gras night. All the screens are showing the parade. I think it was inside a gym, not like a big sports field. Like, I've lost my words. A stadium, man, a stadium. It was anyway. So we're dancing to all these queer anthems, and then we had basically a shinny. So we had like each line was a different level, and we had a guy who now plays, Jeff, who's an amazing ally, now plays AIHL for Bears. Like, he played, and he was super cool.
It's amazing how much something as simple as tape can connect the community across the world. It's like even the other day, I took a photo when I was in Newcastle of the Mustangs. Some of the players have still got the Pride Tape on their sticks, and I just sent through a collaboration on Instagram to Pride Tape. They do follow our podcast on the socials, but I thought, they won't accept. But then they did, and it was just like flooded at all these different likes and things like that, and shares, and just something that simple is just really, really cool.
they took us from, so we probably had a couple of hundred followers on Instagram when we first launched. And then when Pride Tape heard of us, I think we ordered a whole box of tape, or maybe Alice ordered two. We went nuts for the Pride Tape. And so after our game, like, he published photos and went, how amazing is this? They've started this queer club in Sydney, and they've all got Pride Tape. And I'm going to do a massive flex right now. This stick behind me was wrapped by Luke Prokop, who's an NHL prospect. It's a stick I bought when Pride Tape and the brand No Name Hockey were doing a special during COVID. So it's like, got the Pride Tape stuff on it. And I met Jeff, one of the founders of Pride Tape, over at Seattle Pride, and hung out with him and found out we were both as obsessed about all kinds of music and a whole bunch of other, and meeting him was like meeting one of your heroes. He is one of my heroes. He's introduced us to so many people. And every single time we've done a big event, whether it's World Pride or our Mardi Gras games or our Pride Month games, or, we did a game in Newcastle, like the first ever Pride game up there, like, he has cross-promoted us and given us huge coverage and encouragement. And because of him, we've done interviews with the NHL a few times, done interviews with Brock McGillis, who was doing Pride Hockey a couple of years ago. And a bunch of other channels, and it's all because of his network, because anyone who's involved in queer hockey, this is it. Like, this is the flag that we fly whenever we're out playing hockey. It's so cool.
So you've gone from NHL interviews to this podcast. So
this is the highlight interview so far. No, it was really cool. I got interviewed by Nora when I was over in Seattle. She was like, we're so amazed that you came over from Sydney. I went, please don't film me skating. Like, just get Dash and Jamie. They're really good now, playing in the top division. But, like, don't get action shots of me. Just get me on the bench. Which she did, bless her. Thanks, Nora.
Before we move on, just mentioning Seattle. How was that experience? Because the people that I've had on, whether or not it was Stephen Thompson I've had on this season, they all just rave about it and how great it is and how big it is. Can you just explain your experience going over there?
Yeah. So I think the year before, we saw a whole bunch of coverage from last year, and they'd had a couple of hundred, right? And so Dash and I were talking, like, let's save up, we've got to go. And we're going to go over with Cade, was organising it for Australia. Unfortunately, he had surgery and couldn't go. Cade's, like the president of our national body, so Australian LGBT Ice Hockey, one of the co-founders of Southern Lights. So he was kind of the impetus for it. Anyway, we saved up money, did a bunch of gigs to save the money, registered, and then they send you this form to self-grade. And I'm like, we are not North American. And I remember, so I'll talk a bit more about Jamie later, but Jamie is one of our most visible allies for queer hockey in Sydney. An amazing player, plays decent level in Ice Hockey New South Wales. I've played on a couple of teams with him. Like, he's phenomenal. And Jamie was like, I don't think we should put ourselves in the experience division. Like, and I went, hell no, I'm not. Like, I'm going to try and get And then they ask you for, like, you put your division. Now, I don't know what Ice Hockey New South Wales Div 2, Div 1 is the equivalent of in the States and Canada. I don't even know what the AHL is the equivalent of, right? But I think because it was a social league, like the top players, you got Andrew and Luke and Jessica Platt and all these pro players out there, like, they were clearly cruising around. They were being nice about it. Like, they weren't being like your normal, when you're playing beer leagues, dudes show off. It's but the really cool so we get there. And I walk in and I see Jessica Platt and I see Nora and I see Jeff and Luke Prokop and KO, who runs one of the tournaments over there, and JJ and Stephen. I'm like, oh my God, these are people that I fanboyed hard. And I'm rocking up, finally getting to meet in person. So we took that pride tape stick behind me over. I got all of them to sign it. Did a pride tape with a pro with Luke Prokop, and he wrapped it up and did that David Bowie lightning bolt thing, which is super cool on it. And then we got down to the hockey. Jamie and Dash did really, really well. Like, both of them got a bunch of points. Jamie in the All-Stars scored a goal. I think Australia did okay. And then there's some Melbourne players that were playing in the division I was in. So I was in intermediate, and I was definitely towards the bottom of intermediate. And probably one of a handful who were born in Gen X that were playing. But it was just the fun of it, like the joy of being out there, 300 something players, and then seeing really, really good players play, and seeing lots of trans players out there. Super cool. Like, in Australia, there's some, right? It'd be really good if we could have more, particularly in Sydney. They had several teams, Trans Wave and Team Trans, in a couple of divisions. Like, that's amazing. And they did parties as well. They don't ask a DJ what they think of your music. Like, the guy's face just went white. He goes, "What do you think?" And I went, "There are so many amazing queer artists that you could pretty much play exclusively queer artists. I can't believe you played Kylie Padam when I skated out on the ice." I know I'm an Aussie, man, but we've been hearing Padam Padam for 12 months. I did a Kylie drag tour up the East Coast, not DJing for drag queens. It's like, I've had enough Kylie, thanks. Let me introduce you to these. I feel, anyway, to those DJs, I apologize, but anyway, it was super cool. And we got medals. We got to meet so many of our heroes, and make amazing connections and play lots and lots of hockey. I could barely walk by the end of it, like so many games on the Seattle's 3 sheets of ice that they have at the community. That's the equivalent of all the ice sheets in Sydney in a single building, with the Kraken people there. The Kraken
it's amazing.
Kraken announcers announcing our games, DJ. Oh, man, so good.
It's just on another scale, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you did mention KO, who I've had on this
legend.
podcast, and KO is someone now that I class as a friend, and we haven't actually met in person, but we keep in contact through socials, and I can't wait for the day that I can get over there to their tournament as well.
You so have to come. KO, like, we hung out a fair bit and socialized as well as the hockey stuff, and we talked about how our communities are growing, and the different things that we've tried with bringing more people into team sport, and queer community into team sport, and all of that. That was really cool with KO. And then JJ and Stephen and others with Seattle, and the Cutting Edges guys, like some of them had come out for our World Pride game the year before. So just making those connections. But yeah, KO, rockstar, super cool. Super cool.
You mentioned earlier about being a hockey parent and the journey with ice hockey. You said it started out with your kids, but it also was a journey for you as well.
It was
through ice hockey and Harbour Lights.
Yeah. So everyone outside hockey knew I was queer. It's from parties, from work, from socializing, and I've been involved with various advocacy organizations over the years. Things like ACON and Equality Australia and groups like that. But in hockey, I wasn't. And when Dash came out very early into them playing representative hockey, I was like, okay, I'm not going to bring my bit. That'll just add a whole nother layer of complexity to it for people to deal with. And then when we did that social game where Alice organised for the whole team to put the tape on, that was my coming out to the rest of my hockey players that I've been playing in beer leagues with. Now, for some of them that were playing on the other teams against us, it almost instantly changed how they related to me, and that sucks, man. But others, it positively changed how they relate to me, and it means you can not have to check yourself the whole time, not have to change your words the whole time. And I was reading something the other day actually about this. It happens to bi guys quite a bit. In fact, apparently we're like the most closeted part of the LGBT community because of the biases that we hit externally, but also unfortunately inside the community. Because you hit things like, oh, but you're a parent. Like, yeah. So, like, pre-marriage equality, of course. I was lucky to be able to have kids. Things like that, or that, they prefer more that, like, everyone's just blended. In other words, like, please don't be so visible about it. Don't be so proud, in all caps, proud. And so playing that game, having the pride tape, a couple of people then spoke to the team and came out themselves, including a mate of mine, Rob. I knew, but I don't think anyone else did. And that then became a motivator to, let's at least put on social games where we can celebrate who we are. Because it's part of what attracts you to the kinds of parties you go to, the music you listen to. In my case, I still love ballet. I go to ballet 6-7 times a year. All of that kind of stuff is part of your being, and you shouldn't have to hide it. Therefore, it's important to have the conversations, often, one-on-one with people. So rather than stand up and go, oh, you can't say that, more pull them aside and go, here's how that comes across, and here's why that sucks. And so you never stop coming out to people. This is the reality, right? For queer people, is every time you meet someone new, it's at what point is that going to come up? Unless,
100%.
Unless you walk in the room and, hey, obviously, when I'm DJing at parties, it's screaming, with makeup on and everything else. But it's having those conversations with people, and then you can form allies out of that. Some of our biggest supporters now are people who had that wake-up call, who are like, oh, they're just words, like everyone just says it, and now they understand why they're not just words. They've become really, really strong supporters, and participating in our games. Like, I love it when our friends from all over in hockey are like, I really want to play in a Harbour Lights game. Would that be cool? Or when I was playing in this league last year, that was like, most of the other players were pretty decent level, like Div 2 level, not me. One of the guys coming up and he goes, I asked to be on this team because my sister's gay, and I just want to show her that I'm supporting her. And I'm like, dude, that's an amazing reason to want to do it. And then he became a really good line mate for a couple of our queer players on the team. So, we need those allies, but sometimes winning them over starts with that quiet conversation, because we stand up and we do the whole, there's a time and place for that, but it's not on the hockey rink. We're already flying the flag as it is. Anyway.
100%. I never thought I'd ever be, I never thought I'd ever actually be out as bi at all. But to be out as bi in hockey, I don't play, but I'm heavily involved in the media side of things, etc. And then when I wanted to start this podcast, I thought to myself, I wonder if people will want to listen, will they accept it, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. But I hope that this podcast can help have those little conversations where people might tune in and listen to the stories of yourself and others that I've had on.
Yeah. I think, look, you say you don't play. Yeah, you've been training though, right?
No, I live way too far away from a rink. I went to the Southern Lights Come and Try event and I really want to play, but I haven't got there yet. But it will happen.
I mean, I've said this 100,000 times to people in hockey. I'm like, if I can get back into sport, having been, raving and playing at doofs and putting on track events to then go, you know what I need to do is this sport that you can really hurt yourself at. That's important when you're middle-aged, right? And I've said to people, look, if I can do it, I'm just going out there to have fun, no one's going to draft me for any selective team. Like, it's not going to happen. Then you can too. And I think, like, my best experience of that, one of my friends from dance parties, Anya, who you've had on the podcast, she and I'd never seen each other in daylight. I mean, maybe as the sun was coming up, like, we knew each other from all these parties that we go to. Obviously, I knew she was queer. And then, she'll see my pictures and she goes, I think I want to play hockey. And I'm like, yeah, we're about the same age. Like, sure. She goes, yeah, but like you started a few years ago. And I went, you don't need to play it because you want to become the best. Like, just play it because it's fun. And what she brought was joy for the whole community. They see someone who is clearly middle-aged, who's out there, who's giving it a go, who's reconnecting with sport after decades, who probably, I don't think she'd skated since she was a kid or something like that. And she's brought more friends into hockey. Like, that is so super cool, Another guy, Kurt, who decided, he was a figure skater and decided he'd give it a go, right? So he gave it a go, came and he loved it and goes, oh my God, I want to do hockey. And next minute he's bought everything. And then I was a goalkeeper at the time. God help me. I think I was 47 at the time or something. Like, what kind of 47-year-old idiot decides to start being a goalkeeper in hockey? But anyway, I was. And he said, can I wear the gear? I just want to try it on. A week later, he was playing in our Pride Month game as goalie.
Amazing.
I was like, man, more power to you, Kurt. And I played on a bunch of teams. It also brought back, like, through community, players who'd grown up playing hockey and quit, in their teens because of the homophobia that they'd hit. And it, particularly with guys, and then people who've transitioned, It is amazing. Women's sport is so far in front of all other, whether it's mixed sport or men's sport, like, so far in front for being supportive. And no kidding, queer women are winning championships at every single level. It's like Megan Rapinoe said something about that to a certain politician. It's like, oh no, it wasn't America that won, it was the lesbians. And they have, like, queer women have built this great community in sport, supporting each other, backing each other, that visibility, that, being able to celebrate as their true selves. Amazing. The amount of support women have given men and trans people and non-binary people into sport is just phenomenal. It also happens out in the queer community, with rallies, with campaigning, with all of it. Like, bless them. And then, anyway, back to some of the people that got into it were really, really good players. Like, we got a AAA player who plays in Harbour Lights, who's I have been lucky to play on a team with. We're in a league last year. And she is such a good teammate to have, like, just supports you as a team player, clearly miles in front of everyone else as far as skills go. And then some of the guys that I played with, like Mitz and Dustin, who'd given it up when they were in their teens or early 20s, like, for them to come back in and reconnect, in their, I don't know, 30s or something like that, having those guys out on the ice and seeing what they bring to the game, and just clearly really focused on, I'm doing this because I want to be part of this team. It's not just about me. And hockey is that kind of sport. It is Otherwise Sidney Crosby would win every championship, or Conor McDavid, or what, like name your superstar. How come they haven't won the Stanley Cup in the last couple of years? Teams win cups, right?
Yeah.
And so part of what we're trying to do with queer hockey is to bring that sense of community, that queer joy, to a sport that is, let's face it, sometimes rough and sometimes gets pretty gnarly. But to be able to have fun doing it and to back each other, like to be there for each other, which, it's. Sorry, I was about to go on a massive other tangent.
Well, you mentioned winning, and
Oh man,
I know how challenging it can be, and it's something you mentioned to me before we came on, how it's challenging to find genuine allies. And you mentioned winning, and you did mention to me about Harbour Lights winning a competitive league, and you mentioned Jamie before. How amazing is Jamie?
Yeah, so Jamie, soon after we started Harbour Lights and put on some games, he came along. That's how I first met him. He's like, I really want to support you guys, and talked about friends of his. And yeah, he's an ally. He doesn't rock up and go, hey, I'm an ally. He just does it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
dude, we know you're straight. That's cool. But he didn't say it. He wasn't like, oh, I'm straight, but I want to, like, he's like, I really want to support. I want to be part of it. He's a great player. So he's played, like at Ice Hockey New South Wales level, bunch of different levels, quite high up. And an opportunity came up with this winter league to get a team in. So him and Kurt helped organize that. And it was basically a draft, because that's how this league runs normally. So they were like, send us a list of all the people who are interested, accepting that it's going to be a draft. So not everyone's going to. We need to balance the teams, because otherwise, you guys could go out there and lose every single game, or we could go out there and win every single game. And I think they pretty much got the balance right. But what they didn't factor for, when people, this is the Mighty Duck story, right? Like when people have a reason to want to play together, they play as a team together. And teams win games, not individuals. We had people who, sure, they could take the puck and they could score a goal sometimes. But the first time they do that, they're now targeted. Everyone's going to block them down. So what Jamie brought in with the allies who had on the team, and then we had I think like 12 out of 18 were queer players, was to have lines gelling together. And old rules from like Pee-wee days: 3 passes and then you can take a shot. That's the rule. And so 3 passes, take a shot, score a goal. And so our first 4 games we were struggling. We were losing by a couple of goals. People were laughing at us. What's this weird new team with those sexy ass jerseys? But well, they're not very good. They keep on losing. We got together, we had a barbecue with a bunch of things we had left over from our World Pride tournament, and Jamie set that system up. And so obviously I was on the bottom line. Everyone on my line scored a whole lot except for me, but I did score some basically by them setting me up. They're like, be like Ovi, go there, hash marks, stay there, we'll bring it down to you. And we do that 4 or 5 times a game, and eventually I'd score. Anyway, so we had this, having been, let's call it what it was. We were the laughing stock of the league. We got our shit together. We were playing as a team. We were enjoying playing as a team. We were socializing together. We were hanging out with these people outside hockey, and we were bonded over, we are representing the queer community in a league that hasn't had this before. There is no league in Sydney that has queer teams playing on it. There are queer players who play on all kinds of leagues, but an entire team that is identifiably queer. Now, yes, some of them are allies, sure. One of the cool things that Jamie set up was he was going to be overseas when it got to the grand final. So he's like, we're going to run these plays. We're going to make the grand final. And we had 2 goals scored by an NB player, 2 goals scored by one of our gay players who's like super hot, like has very many fans in the stands. Come and see this guy play. And one of our trans players scored a couple of goals, and then one of our lesbian players scored. Like, we had almost the entire rainbow, except for, hey, the bike person didn't score a goal. But that was cool. I think I got an assist at some point, you know. And it just shows that when you've got a reason to be there together, that reason is to enjoy being ourselves. Do we want to win? Of course, you're playing sport, you know, you'd like to win, but the main reason was enjoying being together and celebrating that and seeing that whole part of that rainbow team come together. And it wasn't just the straight dude scoring the goal. It was well and truly a team effort. And that was cool. You know, it was a good team. And then at the end of that season, that was that. I think, you know, we'd sort of shown what was possible, and it went back to the normal drafts where they just mix it up. Yeah.
You've had that moment with Harbour Lights. There's been Pride Cups, World Pride, the Newcastle Pride game,
Yeah.
Mardi Gras tournament. You've gone to Seattle as well. Are you even amazed yourself when you sit back and you look at the total body of what's happened since Pride tape and ordering boxes of Pride tape and then launching a club? Are you amazed at the body of work of Harbour Lights and yourself since it's all happened?
We have a really cool community of enthusiastic advocates within Harbour Lights. Yeah. And quite a few of them have been involved in other forms of queer advocacy elsewhere. And so they bring in friends, like people who are like, do you reckon I could play hockey? 25, 30, like pick an age, you know? And that's what's grown the club, you know? So for me and people my age, hey, if I can do it, so can you at our age. You know, but I can't say that to an 18-year-old. They're just like, yeah, whatever, old man. You know, but there's an 18-year-old having that conversation. Yeah, I'm envy and I'm playing. You know, like Dash's team was 2 years in a row was in the grand finals, right, at Ice Hockey New South Wales in full contact hockey, and players who are, you know, particularly in the national women's competition and, you know, across the state divisions, are bringing other people into hockey going, hey, this club has social games. That's what we're about. I know it's weird having said all those things about, yeah, you play a sport, of course you want to win at some point. Our social games actually don't particularly care who wins. It's more, and as a result, lots of goals get scored. But that's so good. Like, so many people have had their first ever game in hockey in a Harbour Lights game that have then gone and joined, you know, a beer league, a social league, or whatever, where they can play weekly, because we can't put on games weekly. It's just there aren't enough rinks in Sydney. The options aren't there at the moment, you know. And, you know, people learning from players who are much more experienced from them, making those connections, have then gone on to join other teams, you know, particularly across Ice Hockey New South Wales. That's super cool.
And how much has social media played a role for Harbour Lights in getting people to play hockey?
Yeah, I think, like, going right back to, because of Pride Tape, we found out about all these other queer hockey clubs around the world and made all those kind of connections. And then, so we've had social media as it's about being visible, about celebrating our members, sharing that pride. We're finally getting back into doing player cards. We've had so much other stuff going on. But there's a really awesome one up there right now that Keely's done. That visibility encourages people not only to want to play hockey, it encourages people to make the community connections, you know? And I think what we've what we're up against is hockey is not affordable, and we're looking at ways of making that more affordable over in the States. They do a really good job with scholarships and things like that. That would be the dream for us. But what we can do is highlight our community and say, look at this queer joy on the ice playing this game, and look at the entire rainbow represented. There is a place for you in this insane sport that we're all obsessed with. And people see smiles on faces and they're like, that's super cool, and then they connect, and then across the hockey community, people are like, wow, you've got like all these people from all walks of life playing hockey and enjoying themselves. And then, once those connections happen, we can have games together. We can put on tournaments and those people will come along and they'll go back to their clubs up the coast or down in Canberra, or we've had people from Brisbane come and play, and say, hey, there's this thing happening. I wish we had what Southern Lights had, where we could have multiple teams in multiple divisions. That would be phenomenal. But we do what we can, and it's that social aspect, and Instagram is a great way of showcasing that. So yeah, it means that some of our amazing friends like Lee, who's been doing a lot of photos for us, and Mish and others, they come along and make sure that they capture that joy, the happy faces, or whatever, and then the action photos, and people can show it to their friends and families and go, look at me playing the hockey. It's just, that's cool.
I met Mish. I met Mish about a month ago when I was in Sydney. Super cool person.
Yeah, great sporty person too. But Mish did our photos for Mardi Gras, for the actual parade and float, and that's like, I used to do that years ago. I used to shoot for various newspapers and magazines or whatever. It's a hard job walking backwards up Oxford Street, trying to get all these photos of people and make them look cool, and capture those. And with so much going on, and Mish made us look like legends pushing this baby ice-free surfacer off Oxford Street with our seahorses.
It shouldn't be that difficult when many people have been doing that at 2 a.m. in the morning, walking backwards up Oxford Street.
Oh, God knows I have thousands of times. Yeah. Carrying a camera when you're trying to get a decent shot. Let me tell you, like, I did it for years and years and years. Used to take photos and video at parades for various outlets, and it's a hard job. So yay Mish, and yay Lee, and all the other amazing photographers who come and shoot for our games. There's so many of them, but you can see it on you go to our Instagram. We always credit our photographers. That's really important. They make us look good. They clearly make editorial choices, because what we don't get is the photos of us not looking good. So they go through and they go, that's the one where Andrew looked really cool in their first game playing with Harbour Lights, which he will do next March. I think that's it shows the power of the image, right? It's cool. Bless them.
What's your greatest moment you had in queer hockey?
Oh my God. Meeting so many of my queer heroes, initially online, and then in Seattle, and then on various travels. Finally getting to meet Jeff, like probably the first high profile person that we connected with when Harbour Lights started, like Jeff at Pride Day. It was so cool. And then Luke Prokop and Andrew and Jessica and KO and JJ, and I could go on and on and on, and I feel really bad that I can't rattle off the entire list of names. Anyway, that was super. That was cool because it showed me we are part of this global movement that is pumping. Sometimes in Sydney, because it's hard with only 3 rinks and we don't have teams in leagues. Sometimes it can feel like we're sort of doing this club every now and again when we can. But we are part of this global scene, and because of those pioneers, particularly over in North America, who some of them have been going for 20 years, all these other clubs exist. And every time Pride Tape shares pictures of people playing hockey with the tape on their sticks, and every time they share content about queer hockey, and every time the NHL does it, other people are like, maybe we should put on a queer hockey shinny or social game or floor hockey or whatever it is, and another club starts. And then the last couple of years, like since Harbour, it makes Harbour Lights sound old, like 3 years old, I think. 3 years old, still toddlers. But since then, like we've seen quite a few other clubs start up around the world and then reach out and connect. But I'd say, look, my most proud moment is a proud dad moment.
That was my next question to you. What was your proudest moment in queer hockey? Was my next question.
My proudest moment in queer hockey. It's actually a proud dad moment, and it was the committee had put a huge amount of work into making the World Pride tournament happen, and to make it happen across 2 days, and to have 100 players, in a couple of divisions and multiple teams, and to get jerseys in, and they all work so hard. I rocked up on the both days and helped out, but behind the scenes, like the phenomenal amount of work that they put in, particularly Brigida and Keely and Maddie and others that backed it, and Sal, and like just awesome. And then you had people like Kurt organising a whole bunch of stuff so that people were entertained and fed, and photographers and all of that. That was super cool. So then at some point, someone gave me a microphone. Like, I'm a DJ for a reason. I can't sing. I do not have a good voice. And Frock Hudson, who's a friend of Cade's, who's like our national body president, was emceeing the event for us in this most amazing purpley sparkling outfit. And Frock goes, "So Stuart, tell us what's going on in the first game." It was like the experience level, and my kid's about to skate out with 4 of their friends that they had grown up playing hockey together, and they're all on a line together.
Amazing.
And so they come out on the line, and as they're skating, they're talking about some move that some coach, let's do that thing that this person told us to do. And I'm like, oh my God, these kids are not going to make friends if they're too vocal about this stuff. Because they're going to show off. I can tell they're going to show off. And I didn't have my glasses on, so I'm announcing and I'm saying all the numbers and blah, and then scanning down and whatever. And I didn't get round to Dash's team. So I had no idea what jersey number Dash is wearing. There's a bunch of people with shoulder length, blondish hair. I can't tell who my kid is. That makes me a bad parent. Sure. I didn't know what number Dash was. This move happens, and I'm like, I think this team's going to do this. And then they score, and I went, oh my God. And then they all did some weird choreographed move, Sally, together. And then the ref comes over and says, oh, that was jersey number 9. Now, Gordy's jersey. So, of course, it's almost like a dad joke. I'm like, in jersey number 9, representing all queer hockey. And I'm looking down the list, and I'm like, who is it? Like, Cody's number. I'm a Red Wings fan. Like, this is a big moment for me on the mic. And I go, oh shit, it's Dash. And Frock's on the other side of the rink, and Frock goes, in case no one has realised, that's Stuart's kid. Anyway, we'll let Stuart off for swearing in front of hundreds of people. So that was my proudest, because it was Dash being cool, their whole team being cool, and then see all of their friends, like, they scored goals, but then they helped other people score their first goals. That was like super cool to see. So that was proudest moment. It's World Pride. We've got people from all different countries. We had a bunch of players from Arizona, and like Cutting Edges Hockey came over, and people from all over Australia, including WA and Queensland. And here we are having this tournament. And as a hockey parent, I'm like actually part of this whole thing happening. And then, I get to play hockey. So that was super cool. When Dash and I played on that team that Jamie organised last year, I got a couple of assists off some Dash goals. Like, that was pretty proud. But it doesn't beat the Dash wearing Hal's number 9 and then scoring like that. I know that's so dad, but yeah, that's me.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I love it. It's a great story. Stuart, I could talk to you for hours and hours. I think it's been a really enjoyable chat. I've had plenty of laughs. Is there anything before I let you go that you want to plug to the listeners or the viewers?
Right. Yes. Let me see how much we've got. We're at Purple Game, so your podcast will possibly come out after this. But we're doing we're at Purple Game at the end of August. It's a fundraiser for an amazing queer youth advocacy organisation. We are working with some legends up in Newcastle to do another Newcastle Pride game. So that'll be coming up in spring. And then we are planning some things for over the summer. So we kind of did a summer series last summer. We're hoping we can do something like that. And right now we're working on our Mardi Gras application. And we're going to come up with some wild ideas. Like the little baby Zamboni ice resurfacer was cute. We wanted a truck. They didn't let us have a truck because it was our first year. But we're going to work on something for Mardi Gras. So anyone who's coming to Sydney for Mardi Gras to go to one of the most amazing parades and parties in the world, I say that with absolute bias, of course. But I've been to Pride events around the world, and Sydney does a really good party. If you're coming out for that and you want to watch or play hockey, you can guarantee that we will have a Mardi Gras tournament just before it. And you should probably then go and get a good massage and a sauna so that you're capable of walking in the parade the next day. And come to the party if you can. Like Mardi Gras dance party is just one of the greatest in the world. It is. If you haven't done it, Andrew, put it on your list. It is amazing.
I haven't.
So I just plugged a whole bunch of stuff. Thanks so much. Anyway, thanks so much for having me on and talking all kinds of stuff. Far out.
Yeah, it's been really enjoyable. I think off the top of my head, I think you've outdone Cade and gone longer. I think Cade was the longest recorded episode that I've had, and I think you might have eclipsed Cade. So you've got that in your back pocket too.
Oh, I could edit it for you, like that's what I do. I create media for a living. I'm just incapable of giving the short quote when it's me talking. Anyway, man, thanks heaps for having me on, and thank you so much to everyone who's part of queer hockey. Like, it matters a lot what we're all doing together, being visible, being proud. Just makes such a big difference in people's lives, and it's so amazing to be part of. I'm so blessed that I get to be part of this. Thank you.
Absolutely, mate. Couldn't agree more. We are Pride and Puck Podcast. As we said at the start, you can find us at the socials at Pride Puck Pod, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. Give us a like, subscribe, follow, rate, and review. All the good stuff. You know what to do. You know the drill. This is episode 18 with Stuart Ridley. I'm Andrew McDougall, and we will see you next month for another blockbuster episode. Until then, bye.